March 22, 1998. The cruise ship R1 was sailing through the Caribbean when Amy Bradley disappeared. Her husband Barry claimed he watched her fall overboard into the dark ocean waters. But when investigators arrived, they found blood in the cabin. A sailor was spotted carrying a body, and Amy was never seen again. Was this a tragic accident, a murder, or something even more sinister? 14 witnesses would later tell a very different story than the one Barry Bradley told police. Welcome to the channel. The Bradley family from Virginia Beach had every reason to celebrate. Amy, just 23 years old, her husband Barry, and their 18-month-old daughter Savannah were embarking on a dream vacation aboard the Royal Caribbean ship R1. It was March 1998, and they were heading to the Caribbean. But on the second night of the voyage, something went terribly wrong. Amy went to the bathroom and never came back. Barry told investigators he heard a splash and found the bathroom window open. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Why would a mother leave her child alone in a cabin to go swimming at 2 a.m.? What really happened in cabin 802 that night? Peek 1. When investigators searched cabin 802, they found something that contradicted Barry Bradley's story. Blood was discovered in the bathroom type O, matching Amy's. It wasn't from a nosebleed. The pattern suggested a violent struggle. But here's the problem: the ship's crew had already cleaned the cabin by the time police boarded. Yet one detail doesn't fit: who cleaned the blood and why. And that's where it gets strange. The official investigation would quickly dismiss the blood as insignificant without proper testing. How did investigators miss what was right in front of them? Just days after Amy's disappearance, a witness came forward with a chilling account. A crew member named John had told fellow workers he saw Barry Bradley dragging his wife's body. But here's the problem: John was never formally interviewed by police. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Why would a crew member lie about witnessing such a thing? And that's where it gets strange. John was suddenly transferred to another ship and disappeared from the investigation entirely. Who was this sailor, and what did he really see? Peek 2. As more witnesses came forward, a disturbing pattern emerged. Several passengers reported seeing young women being brought onto the ship at various ports. The R1, investigators would learn, had a secret operation: prostitution and human trafficking. But here's the problem: Amy's name was never connected to this operation. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Why would a young married mother fall in with such dangerous people? And that's where it gets strange. Investigators would discover that Barry Bradley himself had connections to the criminal network. What was the real reason Amy was taken? In 2005, 7 years after Amy disappeared, a woman named Dawn received a chilling email. It contained 2 photographs. One showed a woman with distinctive tattoos being led by a man in a hotel. The subject looked exactly like Amy. Yet here's the problem: the photos were allegedly taken in 1998, yet they only surfaced 7 years later. Yet one detail doesn't fit: who sent these photos and why now? And that's where it gets strange. The email was traced to an internet cafe in Barbados, but the person who sent it was never identified. Was this proof Amy was alive, or something else entirely? 14 witnesses would eventually come forward with information about Amy's fate. Their stories were consistent and damning. They claimed to have seen Amy on the ship after her alleged drowning. She was being held against her will. Yet here's the problem: none of these witnesses were called to testify in any official proceeding. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Why would so many people make up the same story? And that's where it gets strange. Cruise ship attorneys quickly settled civil cases, effectively buying witness silence. What were they hiding? Barry Bradley was portrayed as a grieving husband, but investigators soon discovered he wasn't who he claimed to be. His real name was different. He had a criminal past. Yet here's the problem: none of this was reported in initial news coverage. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Why did Barry change his identity? And that's where it gets strange. Investigators would learn Barry had been involved with the same criminal network suspected in Amy's disappearance. Was Amy taken because of her husband's connections? Investigators following the evidence would eventually trace a path to Haiti. Witnesses claimed Amy was seen on the island, alive, being held in a house. Yet here's the problem: the U.S. Embassy in Haiti refused to investigate. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Why would they dismiss credible witness testimony? And that's where it gets strange. The FBI reportedly had Amy in their database as a trafficking victim, yet took no action. Who was protecting whom? Peek 3. Years later, a dying man made a shocking confession. He claimed to have participated in disposing of Amy's body. He said she had been killed aboard the ship and her remains were weighed down and thrown overboard. Yet here's the problem, he couldn't remember the exact location. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Why would he confess to a murder he couldn't prove? And that's where it gets strange. Investigators dismiss the confession as fantasy, but wouldn't it make sense to check what really happened to Amy Bradley's body? The official case remains open, though Amy Bradley has never been found. Her family continues to search, to demand answers, to hold on to hope. Yet here's the problem, the cruise industry has fought every attempt at accountability. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Why is it so hard to get justice for crimes at sea? And that's where it gets strange. Despite all the evidence of trafficking and murder, no one has ever been charged. Who really killed Amy Bradley, and where is her body? The ocean holds its secrets tight. Will justice ever come? In recent years, advanced DNA technology has cracked cold cases worldwide. Yet here's the problem, no DNA match has ever been found for Amy Bradley. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Wouldn't her remains have produced some evidence if they'd been tested? And that's where it gets strange. The family has repeatedly requested testing of various remains found in Caribbean waters, but the requests have been denied. What are authorities hiding? Amy Bradley's case exposed a dark truth about the cruise industry. Yet here's the problem, little has changed in the decades since. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Why aren't cruise ships required to have better security? And that's where it gets strange. The companies responsible for passenger safety have fought against regulation at every turn. How many more Amy's will disappear before something changes? Amy's family has never stopped fighting for answers. Yet here's the problem, they've faced obstruction at every turn. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Why is it so hard to get basic information about a missing American citizen? And that's where it gets strange. The family has spent over $200,000 in private investigations, while official agencies do nothing. What does it take to get justice? Amy Bradley is not alone. Yet here's the problem, cruise ship disappearances happen regularly with little media attention. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Why don't we hear about these cases? And that's where it gets strange. The cruise industry has a history of covering up crimes. How many more mysteries float in these ocean graves? What really happened to Amy Bradley? Was she murdered that night in cabin 802? Was she trafficked to Haiti? Is she still alive somewhere? Yet here's the problem, we may never know for certain. Yet one detail doesn't fit. Shouldn't we demand better from those we trust to keep us safe? And that's where it gets strange. The truth may be out there, but some want it to stay hidden forever. Amy Bradley went on vacation and never came home. Her daughter Savannah is now an adult who never knew her mother. The sea gave up no answers. Will we ever get justice for Amy? Amy Bradley's case remains unsolved. If you have any information about her disappearance or what happened aboard the R1, please contact the FBI or local authorities. Subscribe for more cold case investigations, and leave a comment if you have theories about what really happened to Amy. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share this video.